Welcome to the Astrology Forecast for May of 2024 with astrologer Justin Crockett, Elzie, and myself, Elizabeth Liz Muschett. Welcome, Justin. It's nice to
Hey,
have you
hi.
back.
Yes. Looking at May. See what May looks like.
I know the time just seems to be going by so quickly. Do you feel the
Yeah.
same?
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely.
So Justin's website is justincrocketelzie.com and his email is justin.elzie@gmail.com. And my website is alightpath.com, and you can email me at liz@alightpath. So as we enter the month of May, the sun is in Taurus, so I like to do a little overview of the Taurus energy or whatever energy we're going into. So Taurus is a fixed earth sign, and its ruling planet is Venus. Taurus is artistic, likes to garden, reliable, materialistic, down to earth, productive, and understanding. And the caution is stubborn, possessive, resist change, jealous, and controlling. You want to add anything, Justin?
I always say procrastination versus lazy.
Oh, I
Because
like that.
the reason is why Taurus is like this, as I found, is because there is an evaluation that happens. Tauruses have to evaluate the value because Taurus rules second house of values. So there's a contemplative evaluation aspect with Taurus that makes them go slower about things or go slower because they need to evaluate and contemplate the value of something before they put their time into it. So this can have detriment. Of course, it can be um, uh, what was the word I used again? Um,
It can be a challenge, maybe, perhaps,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
But
sometimes it's
they're
good not to
they're
make a
they're
quick
they're grounded.
decision.
They're definitely grounded. It's a grounding sign, definitely.
Okay, we start the month on May 1st with a chart at 12 a.m., and the chart shape is a bundle, and the chart ruler is Jupiter, and um, the signs go from Aquarius to Taurus, so we have a tight concentration of focused energy for the month.
Just like last month, we had the same thing, if you remember right.
Yes, but later in the month, as we'll get to, that planets will start going into the sign of Gemini, so it'll be spreading out a little bit more.
And for those, because I saw a discussion on social media the other day about chart rulers, and just for those who are learning astrology, I think it's important to point out the reason Jupiter is a chart ruler is because the ascendant is Sagittarius here. So
Thank you for that
yeah.
tidbit. So, one of the highlights this month is that we're going to have 5 planets visiting at 29 degrees. And 29 degrees is called the anaretic degree, the degree of fate, or the critical degree. The planet's energy is peaking at this degree. It's purpose driven, old soul energy, intuitive, clairvoyant, risk taking, and it's the end of a cycle. The caution is that it could have sudden ups and downs, it could be restless, karmic experiences, overcompensate, and jumping in blindly. Did you want to add anything, Justin?
Well, I was just going to add in that if people Google it, it'll also say 28 is the anaretic degree. But I always look at these last degrees, 29, 28, 29, as maturation. This is the mature and end of the zodiac sign. So I always like to say that it's a more mature maturation of the sign.
I would agree with that. And it's getting ready to go on to the next sign. So we have Neptune at 29 from May 3rd until September 2nd for 4 months. And it backs down into 28 for a little while, but I didn't track how long that would be.
Hmm.
And then Mercury's hits 29 degrees on the 14th for 21 hours. And the sun And each month the sun will be at 29 degrees in a sign, and that's for about 25 hours on the 19th going into the 20th. And then Jupiter will be at 29 degrees Taurus on the 21st through the 25th. So it's 4 days and 6 hours. And I'm using when it's at exactitude. So at 29 and 00 minutes to when it hits 00 of the next sign. And then Venus at 29 Taurus on the 22nd for 21 and a half hours. Anything else to add?
No, you got it on.
And we begin, we do these, we try to do a week at a time, but sometimes we just get 4 or 5 days in to look at, but we try to clump as many days together as we possibly can. I called this week Pluto week because when we get to the second, you'll see, but on the first, and it actually occurs on the West Coast here in the United States, the Pacific time, on the 30th at 9:30 p.m., but on Eastern time it happens on the 1st. So Venus in Taurus squares Pluto in Aquarius. And Venus and, or Mars, Venus is in the 10th house and Pluto is in the 6th house, and they're circled in red. So that'll be an interesting energy. It's like, maybe finding an adjustment that has to happen with our relationships, perhaps, because Taurus is also about relationships. And it's like maybe there's something that you need to decide, do I want to make a change or I don't want to change? How does that work? Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'm noticing in people's charts that I'm looking at now with this, wherever Pluto's at, they're going through dynamic change. I've seen, I've got one person I saw was transiting their natal sun. I've seen one that was transiting their south node, the lunar south node. And I think with the Venus and Taurus there, that I'm not sure if this is how you stated it, but I agree with what you say. And I would also add in that it's about evaluation of the value, what has to um in this period of change, it's about evaluating the value of that. Venus is asking us to look at what the value is, or what to hold on to throughout the change, or the value of the change.
Well, and if this was a person's chart, I might say to them, there's something going on in your day-to-day life or work life that could be a challenge, but what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I would definitely, I would agree that this person's gone as in a long-term period of change and work, and but at this particular time, some of their goals, their values, of what their desires are going to kind of have a dose of reality about that, and so whatever their desires are going to hit a little bit of a bump here, you know.
But it's
So
not something that can't be dealt with easily, I don't think.
no, it's a good thing though, for it's a space to evaluate, I think.
And then on the second, we have Pluto stationing retrograde, and Pluto is circled in orange at 2 degrees of Aquarius in 6 minutes. So Pluto will start this retrograde station and touch back into Capricorn for a couple of months, and then at the end of the year come back into Aquarius for the next 19 years or so.
Yeah.
And so it's like a time to like do some deep inner reflection. If you need to work on some personal issues, this would be a really good time.
I was going to also say, and I agree with you, and I would also say, knowing the Sabian symbols for these degrees here, that this Pluto is changing some of our ideals, because that 0 to 1 degree of the Aquarius there is about consecration of an ideal or ideals. So I think some of our is going to change some of our ideals about some things.
Well, and how we could live 20 years ago or even 5 years ago for that matter, it's a lot different today. So it's like what we needed 5 years ago could be completely different today.
Yep, yep, I agree. I agree.
And then Mars is in Aries, is sextile to Pluto in Aquarius in light blue. So they're kind of the same energy and they're working together. So
Yeah, yeah. That's a volcano right there. Mars sextiling Pluto. I think wherever this shows up in somebody's chart, if they're wanting to change something, and where with it, whatever these 2 points are in Aquarius and Aries, they can accomplish it right now. There's going to be some change, definitely.
right. So if it's like you want to move forward with something positive, that's a good time maybe to launch that. But if it's something like to get in an argument or a fight or ask for a raise, that's probably not the best day.
No, it's not. But let's say that you want to start a new business. This may be the time when they decide to change locations for that new business. That because Pluto's uh, changing that and Aquarius, so there's some change to if they're doing startups or new projects. It's going to go a little bit different than they expected. I think could be.
Right, right. And then the moon is conjunct Neptune and Mars in purple. Um, and so emotions could be a little off kilter because it is at 29 degrees there. It also could be, I would ask myself, but this is a water sign, is it my emotions or am I picking up on somebody else's emotions?
Well, and later this day, the moon moves into Aries and exactly conjuncts later that day with Mars at the same degree in Aries. So it's definitely a day to pay attention to, like you're saying, emotions, but also that fiery energy of our interaction with others, especially that day.
Exactly. Okay. And then we move to May 5th and 6th. On the 6th, Mercury is conjunct Chiron, and that's circled in purple, and they're in Aries at 21 degrees. Um, so I would say be kind with your words, because words can be healing, but they can be very wounding. They can
Yeah,
help somebody feel comfortable, or they can make somebody feel fearful. So,
right, right, I agree.
and
So,
then Sun, do you have something else to add to that?
no, just agreeing with you.
Okay. Sun conjunct Uranus and Jupiter, sextile Saturn and Pisces. So, this is an interesting energy because if I just look at the Sun, Uranus, and Jupiter, it's like, and it's in Taurus, so practical desires that I want or things that I want to achieve, it's like even a little bit of effort that day could be very helpful in achieving them or setting them in motion. And then sextile Saturn, it's like that would be a good day to maybe make a plan of what I want to set in motion.
Yeah. Well, what this feels like to me is, because we've just had that Jupiter Uranus conjunct an exact, and now comes behind the luminary, the sun, to shine a light on these two planets. It's almost like a drawing out of some change. There was something that happened over here, and now the sun comes in, and something is illuminated about that change, or we actually take action, personal action with that change. Possibly.
Yes, exactly. And that sextile started applying on May 2nd. So most of the time, the dates that I have here is when they're exact. And as with all aspects, there's a time when they're approaching each other and becoming closer and closer. So oftentimes there can be several days to even a week or two ahead of time that these energies will be felt or sensed.
Yep.
So I just wanted to make that clear. And then on March 7th, we have a Taurus New Moon at 18 degrees of Taurus in 2 minutes. So the Sun and Moon are conjoined, and they're also conjunct Uranus and Jupiter too. So we have both the luminaries there joining Uranus and Jupiter, kind of reactivating or continuing that activation that
Yeah.
was a few days before.
So what do you think about the moon going in there, Liz, right after that point?
With the moon. Well, and the moon's going to conjoin Uranus and Jupiter first because it moves faster than the sun. Um, I'm not sure. I mean, this is in the relationship house, but then the moon, it's like your emotions. It's like something could seem like some kind of change or something suddenly happens, and you could feel like off kilter, or that is horrible that it happened. But it's
Right.
almost like since Jupiter's next, it's like almost like you get a gift.
Right.
It's
Well,
like
it could be like, example, somebody asks for a raise when there was a Jupiter Uranus conjunction, and now it comes to fruition. A new moon, new start, they get the raise now. It actually something comes into play, possibly.
right, or you could have applied for a job and never heard back, or they just said you weren't getting it, and now all of a sudden you might be getting
Right, right.
it.
Yeah,
And this kind of illustrates this a little bit better with all the big conjunction in the seventh house with the sun and moon, and then its opposite, the ascendant, the part of spirit, and the part of fortune in the first house of self. So um, it doesn't feel like a bad thing, this opposition, even though I don't think of oppositions as bad. It's just like this balancing taking place, and it is in the sign of Scorpio. So maybe some taking the ideas or the changes and thinking about it and not making a rash, fast decision.
right,
And always remember on the new moons to do some kind of manifestation of asking your desires and whatever your goals are, and write it down. Maybe light a candle, have 1 minute of silence. I mean, you can have fun and make a little ritual of anything you want. So
right.
I always encourage that.
And I always talk to Liz. I always talk to clients about the opposition between these two signs, since we know they rule the second eight houses or resources. That a lot of times, especially when we got something so strong in either of these two signs opposing each other, usually you have to give up something. Something has to die in order for you to see a new way of being, or to gain something. The Taurus, needing to gain, right, and accumulate. Something that Scorpio has to let go of something, right? Um, so I think this is actually auspicious, though. Having, and anytime there is a new moon, that part of fortune will be opposing it, like that. So that's an auspicious thing.
Well, it'll be on the ascendant, the part
Right.
of spirit and part of fortune. So it doesn't necessarily oppose it because it depends on how the house systems are set up
Right.
or what
Right.
houses are.
Absolutely. It'll always be on the ascendant.
And I like to think of oppositions more as a polarity point. It's like it's like if you met in the middle, or even each side gave a little bit, it's like it just kind of helps rebalance it all.
Right.
So it's like gaining more information.
Right. Right.
Sometimes in the winds of change, we find our true direction, and the source for this quote is unknown. So we have several planets ingressing into new signs. Mercury will ingress into Taurus on the 15th. Sun ingresses into Gemini on the 20th. Venus to Gemini on the 23rd, and Jupiter to Gemini on the 25th. So, over a 10-day period, there's this new energy coming in, and the Gemini energy is just over a 5-day period.
Right. And I might notice, even though we don't have it on here, later on, not this month, but later on, Mars will move into Gemini. And there's going to be sort of a powerful conjunction later on with Mars and hitting Jupiter. So I'm telling people this is a great year for communications or writing, with all this Gemini energy this year.
Oh, I agree with you so much. So then May 13th to the 18th, and I called this Jupiter Uranus reverberations. And we've kind of talked about that in a couple of previous slides of we had the conjunction last month on the 20th with Uranus and Jupiter. Now what planets are meeting up and joining with them and kind of like shining more light on something or ringing the bell again.
Mm-hmm.
So on the 13th, we have the Sun conjunction Uranus in Taurus. So possible some unexpected change,
Mm-hmm.
but change oftentimes can be very good. And then on the 15th, we have Mercury moves into Taurus, and that's circled in green. And then on the 17th, Mercury in Taurus squares Pluto, and that's in red. So we might, on that day, maybe it would be difficult to find the right words or the right communication style. It's like there could be something deep in there that we want to communicate, but we're just not sure how to communicate it.
Right. And I found, Mercury in Taurus can almost be like a Mercury retrograde. It needs to contemplate. It's a contemplative thinker here, or communicator. And so I think you're right. I agree with you. I think once it squares that Pluto, it's almost like it may be some issues making decisions for a little bit. It's because that Pluto being non-defining, it's like uh, there's so much change. I always look at Pluto as a bursting bomb. It's so much change, and it's squaring Pluto. It's like you can't really, like you said, find the right words, or maybe people are going to feel a little confusion, or really, it may be maybe not the best time to really make decisions around that point.
Well, and it's like almost like I could see that day, if you're a writer, you might have writer's block that day, or if you're journaling, that's like what you're writing down. It's like maybe it doesn't connect, but I would say still write it down because it might be useful in a few days after
Yeah,
Mercury
I
goes
I
away.
agree, because I think Pluto's there to change our way of thinking about something. As we've moved from a sign of like let's go, and it wants to be assertive and direct, and now Mercury's wanting to pull back here into Taurus and think about things. So yeah.
And then on the 18th, the Sun conjuncts Jupiter in Taurus at 28 degrees. So then it's like the Sun is lighting up Jupiter like 100%, where it was feeling it as it was approaching, but now it's like really lighting up that energy
Mm-hmm.
and making things bigger and brighter. And um, so it's like I would write down all the ideas and things that are coming, because it seems like lately that for me personally, it's like I've been getting flashes, and sometimes if I don't write it down, it's like by the time I do write it down, it's like I forget half of it or I forgot the whole thing. And it's like I've been kind of watching what I've written down, and it's like sometimes the individual pieces don't make a lot of sense, but when I can look at all of them together, it's like, oh, that makes so much more sense.
Right.
And then we move on to May 18th to the 22nd. And on the 18th, we have Venus conjunct Uranus. So Uranus and Jupiter are still getting a lot of attention in May. They're very
Right.
active. So what would you say about Venus conjunct Uranus?
I almost think there's a mystical aspect to this, almost in a way. One of the inner planets hitting Uranus there is that, again, I think it's almost like that Venus squaring Pluto. And now it's conjuncting Uranus. It's, maybe we, um, something started to change in what we were wanting to manifest as far as our desires, but that change may actually take place. Um, take place when Venus hits Uranus here. So, but I can also say that yeah, I'll just say that.
Well, and there could be some unexpected changes in relationship,
Mm,
or it could bring issues that need to be dealt with if there's problems in a relationship, but it could also bring amazing, wonderful changes too.
yeah, good day to plant.
Hmm.
Venus conjunct Uranus, or and then maybe a time when it's thinking about money, putting money into beautifying something. You know,
Yes, I like that. And then on the 20th, we have Sun moves into Gemini. So that'll, be shifting that energy and bringing in that Gemini energy.
starts the energy will start speeding up then, right? From
Yes.
Taurus into Gemini, right?
Yes. And, like a lot of communication coming in. And so it's
Mhm.
like, I think I'll be writing down more things.
Yeah, I hear you.
And then on the 22nd, we have the Sun in Gemini trine Pluto in Aquarius. And a trine is 120 degrees of separation. And, it's a flowing aspect that they work together. So um, if Pluto's bringing up some deep issues, it's like I would think that the Sun would help to find some resolution of whatever
Yeah,
needs to happen.
we could see this in our lives. This is a good time where we may make changes to our social media. Good time to start a blog, to change our website. There's a big. I agree. There's a big communications thing going on with this here.
And then we move into March 23rd through the 25th, and we have a mini grand trine here. So Venus is conjunct Jupiter at 29 degrees. So that's the anaretic degree. So that's pretty interesting in itself that they're at 29 degrees. And they're circled in purple, even though this chart is for a couple of days after this is happening. So that's why they are in a different degree. Um,
I
so
was
let's go ahead.
I, I was going to say one thing if I can before I forget about that Sun Pluto. I can't let that go. That Sun Pluto trine. Um, I think us astrologers should really kind of pay attention to the social media giants right around that time. We could see something in the collective, like a new social media pops up, or there's some changes in leadership in the social media. Um, whether it's looking at what's happening with Trump's Truth Social or Elon Musk's X, formerly Twitter. We may, when the sun hits that Pluto, there could see some changes in over this summer with social media giants.
Well, and I know in the United States that there's an issue with TikTok and they're
Yeah,
trying to stop it. So maybe we'll
bingo.
see something happen on that day
Yeah, bingo.
or
Yeah,
around there.
right. They're having to sell it. If they don't sell it, then it'll be banned. Of course, a lot of people should realize that India banned TikTok a few years ago, and it actually opened up the whole cottage industry and benefited American social media giants. So,
So
but
that'll
yeah,
be interesting.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
That'll be interesting to see what comes of that because my friend was visiting and she told me about all these social networks and it's like I hadn't heard of half of them and it's like, well, when did those come on? See?
Right.
Okay. So do you want to say anything about the Venus conjunct Jupiter at 29 degrees?
No, no. I think you got that covered already.
And then Venus will sextile Neptune in Pisces, and that's also at 29 degrees. Um, so, and Neptune's going to stay at 29 degrees for a while. So that'll be very interesting that it stays there for a while. So, Venus
Hmm.
sextile Neptune, um, it's almost like you could bring your dreams into reality
Right.
or like be planning to bring it into reality or so I know a lot of people do journaling of their dreams. So, but it could also be a business plan. any number of things. It could be a trip that you've always wanted to take.
Right.
Uh,
Absolutely.
and then Venus moves into the sign of Gemini. And so Venus's energy will change from Taurus, which that's one of Venus's signs that she rules, into Gemini. So it'll be a change for her, but I think she'll do well with that. It'll be about communication. Would you like to add to that?
No, I think you already covered that, definitely.
And then, a few days before on the slide before, we had Sun trine Pluto. Well, now Venus trines Pluto in the dark blue there. So what would you say about that energy?
Well, I think we're still working with this communication energy. I just had a client today who has Venus and Gemini, and they are finishing up their media arts degree. And I think this is a really great time with Venus going in there to, if you're a writer, perfecting and bringing some things out in the stories. The beauty of communications. That's what I always say. Venus and Gemini is the beauty of communications. And so we could definitely see some great artworks come out, writing books around this period of time. And also with the female archetype here as well, stories about women, and I think it's also interesting what'll happen with women's issues right around this period of time. Is we should watch Venus this year.
Oh, interesting. That's a good point. I like that. Well, and Venus trine Pluto, it's like I think of, because Gemini is about our neighborhoods, and Venus likes nature, so it feels like, maybe there's some little project that you could chip in, and or when you maybe go on a walking trail or you're out and you see some garbage, just take something and pick it up and throw it away.
Right.
And then on the 25th, Jupiter also moves into the sign of Gemini, more Gemini energy.
Yes. This is actually, it's what's interesting about that is Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, has Jupiter and Gemini. So he's actually experiencing a Jupiter return this year.
Oh, okay.
And of course, Jupiter will go retrograde near the end of the year. So it's going to stay in Gemini into next year, actually. So
Well, and maybe Jupiter and Gemini for a year will bring us two gifts instead of one.
yeah, into 2 years, yeah.
Okay, and then on the 29th, we have the Sagittarius full moon. Would you like to speak to that?
No, I'll let you go first on this one. Just curious what you think.
Okay, we have the moon is conjunct Pallas in the sixth house there, and it's opposite Sun, Venus, and Jupiter. So with the moon in Pallas there, to me, Pallas is about strategy, and the moon is our emotional nature, and it's in a fire sign. So it almost feels like, getting fired up to do something. It's like, I've had enough. Now I want to do something about it. And it could just be, I've had enough that the corner of my yard, I want to fix that up. It doesn't have to be anything bad. And then opposite the sun with Venus and Jupiter in Taurus.
Mm.
Um, it's like that Jupiter still super active and the Venus there active. Um, it just feels like that we're continuing an energy to move forward.
Right,
It's like we're peaking to move on, and it's like, a full moon is a culmination. It's like we've reached this, now we illuminate, now it's time to release.
right. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And with
And,
the moon with Pallas, we could also be releasing something that maybe has been bothering us for a long time, and it's just like, I'm not going to let that rule my life, so to speak.
right, right. And that palace can also be seen as patterns, where we see patterns at, and And being that the moon in Sag is about belief systems here a little bit, that Sag, Gemini, philosophy, beliefs, and communication of that it's definitely a time to look at our patterns of our beliefs and how that's playing out here and our goals. This is a very goal driven one, right? It's Sagittarius. And so it's definitely a period, a good period to accomplish some goals.
Thank you. And then with that full moon, we have some sextiles and trines, so it makes too many grand or too many, grand trines.
Not too many, too many, M-I-N-I, right?
Right.
It's an M-A-N-Y. I love that.
It's like my mouth got full, and it's like, okay, that's an interesting energy, but you can see how they all connect
Double
there.
entendre, though, right? Okay.
Right. And the sextile is 60 degrees of separation, and that's in the light blue. And trines are 120 degrees of separation, and those are in the darker blue. So we have moon sextile Pluto, and then Pluto sextiles Neptune, and then Neptune sextiles Jupiter and Venus. So it's like this continuous flow. And then from the moon, we have a trine to Neptune, and then from Pluto, a trine to Jupiter and Venus. So it's all connected. So now to break it all down. Do you want to start, or you want me
Well,
to
I
start?
would say, I think we've already covered a lot of this. I would just say that this just tells me there's going to be a lot of communication going on in the collective, like a lot of voices, a lot of belief systems being thrown along, a lot of voices. And it just kind of, for Aquarian types and there's could be a little like wanting to step back a little bit from all of this a little bit. This is a lot of communicative energy going on here. Hence why it's really a good year for creative types. But also, it's interesting to observe all this, you know.
Well, and it feels like since these degrees are pretty much the very first couple of degrees of the signs and the very late degrees of the sign, it feels like it's a peaking energy to begin anew. It's like, let's finish up. Let's, you know, bring this to some kind of completion so we can move on. Now, whether it's to move on to step 2 or 3 or 4, that's to be determined. So,
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
and then we have May 27th to the 31st. We have Mercury in Taurus, sextile Saturn in Pisces in light blue. So Mercury is conjunct Uranus there. And so you kind of have to combine the energies, even though Mercury would have been at 18, but it's still close enough to Uranus to include that in there. So communication and communicating possibly to make change, but then Saturn's like, well, maybe I don't want all that change. And Uranus is like, change, change, change. So it's kind of like Uranus is helping or assisting to like, let's make some change. We have to make some change.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty powerful conjunction. Being that Uranus is also a planet of communications, but a higher vibrational level. So having these two come together, I think it's super powerful for a communication aspect. Almost channeling in a way here with the Hermes and Uranus together there. You know.
Yes, yes. And then Mercury, well, we talked about the Mercury conjunct Uranus. So we have Mars conjunct Chiron. And it, again, it's like Mars could be, shoot some arrows, or it could be wanting to react in an aggressive way, but it could also be taking action to do some healing or teaching.
Right. Self assertiveness and devaluing oneself and putting oneself out there and being self assertive, you know.
Yes. So it's like, breathe, slow down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to say something of how we've come to the end, or do you want me just to go ahead and talk about the shows?
Well, no, I think we should kind of maybe summarize it. I mean, if I would say, I'd be curious how you would summarize it. I would say that May is really where I think the big thing is the transition point between Taurus and Gemini, where we're going from this, where we're wanting to manifest something, and now it's about communicating it out. Or, we're moving into this faster energy as we move into the spring and summer.
I agree. It's like, what do I need to release, or what is like heavy baggage that I don't need anymore, so that I have space to move forward and open new doors.
Yeah, that new moon, that letting
Mhm.
go of the baggage, Taurus, Scorpio, right?
Yes, and it feels, it feels like we've had some sunny days here in the Pacific Northwest. Today it's raining, but it's feels like, I can stretch and get out in nature more, so I like that.
I also think there's a travel thing here going on with that Mercury Uranus conjunction. So that if it's in Taurus, that could be a good time to actually pay for a trip, right? But there could
Yes.
be a little bit of since it is in Taurus, but it could be a little chaos also with some money around some trips. But it's definitely a good would be a good auspicious date to focus on some travel plans.
Well, and Gemini would be short distance travel in general, and so it could even be a short trip, a couple hours, 3 hours away. I mean,
Right.
some quick short trips possibly.
Right, right.
Okay, so um, please like and subscribe and comment below. We enjoy hearing from you. Upcoming episodes, I have a series of the Astrology Star Sisters Talk Over Tea. And for May, there'll be 3 episodes, and one is Jupiter Uranus reverberations, Venus and Jupiter ingress into Gemini, and Venus star point in Gemini. And then Justin and I are on Talk Cosmos every month, the first Sunday of the month, and it'll be the Taurus New Moon, and that's at 1 p.m. on May 5th. The show is broadcast live. And then Justin will be back with me to do the full moon forecast for Sagittarius full moon.
Hmm.
And then, Justin, can you tell us what you're doing?
Yeah, I do a monthly Mars forecast on Instagram and starting in weekly lunar eclipse forecast and Ask the Astrologer series. So,
Yes, and I listened to your Mars forecast that you did, I think it was a week or so ago, and it was excellent. I really
oh,
enjoyed it. And they're short and sweet too. So, and so if you want to get a hold of us, it's JustinCrockettLZ.com for his website, and his email is justin.lz@gmail.com. And myself, my website's alightpath.com, and you can email me, liz@alightpath. And we thank you so much for joining us, and you have a wonderful month. Thanks, Justin.
all right. Thanks, Liz.